Shit's cool. Atuk. Today, 6 months after I wrote this, I will be commentating on E.A. Koetting's Ordo Ascensum Aetyrnalis. Ordo Ascensum Aetyrnalis by E.A. Koetting was my third book completed this month. Why 18 Flames? It could be a way of saying 666. Al-Quran 74:30 mentions 19 over it. The next verse mentions Guardians of Hell. Could this book be about the system of the Order of the Eternal Ascent? Be hinting at becoming fitted to end up as under all but one of the light beings in charge of the punishment realms hereafter? It could very well be a hint at the message of the light and darkness in sorcery and the like of the 18th tarot trump, the moon. It seems that since it is a spiritual system, summarizing and commenting on it is clearly within copyright exceptions. The entire system seems completely man-made, but here it goes. The lessons on the way to receiving the first flame involve picturing and letting in the darkness, visualizing a swinging pendulum and not letting it fade for 10 minutes. Scry into 8 colors of candles in the order of red, green, yellow, orange, black, indigo, violet, and white, picturing a golden sphere engulfing you. Worship God as El Shaddai, the all-powerful, God of what dangles forth, sends a goat demon out. Yod He Vav He, Yah, take in, Huah, is, was, and will be, or God is a noun as a verb, or you can say Yah, established, Weh, establishing, and Satnam, true name. A Hindu language term used by Sikhs. Meditate kneeling in adoration. But with the index fingers apart instead of clasping, or forming an upwards triangle with the hand. To receive the first flame, meditate on the pendulum while chanting Sat Nam and thinking something is with you now. It will come as no surprise to learn that this system is to invoke the sort of eternity into your life that Al-Quran 120 tells us that the Satan whispers to our forefather as being the tree of immortality and sovereignty that doesn't fade. The emissary of the first flame has 4 lessons. The first is to picture a red sphere floating around your taint, the spot between your genitals and your anus, that rises with golden light and becomes orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and finally purple. The order is a little off. I don't know why that is. The second is to visualize a sphere around you and imagine yourself being cleansed with fire, water, air, and earth. I don't see any good reason why we can't ignore Matthew Lawrence's E.A. Koetting. Warning, to only do one element a day. Meditate with your fingers barely touching till you can feel a magnetic pull or push when you draw your hands up and down away from each other without tapping in the middle. The last is to have your hands a third of a foot to a foot apart and work your way through the opening, the spinal chakras, as before with the sphere visualization. To receive the second flame, one is to picture a sphere and picture the four elements coming in. Sat Nam is intoned. I find it really strange that worshiping God would be jumbled into a satanic cult's degree system, but practices not part and parcel of mainstream Christianity will seem satanic to some. People reading this book are to make believe that E.A. Koetting is like a god on the other side of a rift, directing a flame towards them. Maybe that is what is meant by become a living god. Learn satanic techniques and become like a god in the minds of your followers. The emissaries of the second flame have 3 lessons. The first is to learn to face east, visualize dark blue light in your hands, and use it to draw a circle around you clockwise. Light and sound cults like Eckankar and thelemic groups have had special attention to blue light. You know, in the Book of the Law, my light is blue and gold for the seeing. The second is to picture a circle of flames around you, using a declaration of your power to maintain the circle in all realms. This sort of psychological barriers and arrogant assertions don't maintain through all phenomenon. The next is to call on air, fire, water, and earth instead of God as Yahweh, God is established, Adoni, leader of the community, ultimately this is God, Ahya, being that must have being, expression of being, Yea, Lord of spirits, angels, souls. Those wanting to receive the third flame intone Sat Nam Trunim in grounding posture and say 4 barbarous words that abbreviate to MSVT. So, 3 variations. I don't know how well that could be seen. I am not for reciting or ritually reading things that I don't agree with or didn't ever know what they meant. I'm certainly not for doing such things in order to let a flaming thing come and sweep me away. An emissary of the third flame finds 4 lessons. The first is to have a ritual staff or dagger. The second is to picture a sphere that is a blend of black-red, I presume, and violet to go over any tool you wish to consecrate. If saints and other creations which had life don't come and answer prayers, I don't get why someone would think that their prayers would get answered by inanimate objects. The third lesson is to work on gaining contact with the flames, which are the heptarchy of sons of the phoenix, which is surely the archdemons under Malak-Taus or Satan himself. The final lesson is to point your magical weapon into the sky and say, Alpha, and to the earth saying, Omega. If you haven't been recording observations, start. Trying to obtain Godhood while trying to draw energy from the one before and after all things, makes sense to a mind that got used to limiting their conception of what a god or goddess is in church or something. The fourth flame is to form a cross with your body. Chant a barbarous incantation that abbreviates as IRMVKIRMABTVIRKV, picturing a wind tunnel, and go limp with the assumption that some flames will come to burn, dismember, and scatter you. Remember, if you go through these steps without repenting, you deserve it. A probationer, sworn knight, or the emissary of the fourth flame, has 3 lessons before continuing his demonic ascent. Why not descent? The first is to encircle yourself with 8 violet candles and picture the room ablaze. Does making the pact with these flames, fire beings, jinn, fallen angels, increase a person in anything but loss? It may certainly convince a person that the environment itself may do your bidding. Then obtain a few grimoires and learn 2 sigils with them to try to make changes in your life. Now, Chets, Ziminar, Chets, Andrash, as talismans that I can use. The Lunasa, my bond panicle collage I made to put on my door, may lead the person to believe that, to think of Salas and Ashtaroth, perhaps Buer, Raum, and Camarius, and even Gop, Corson, Ziminar, and Amaimon. Finally, use a 36 square inch sheet of paper and your ritual dagger to try to call forth the spirit named with your new sense of power. I will recommend banishing such entities from your life and evoking the parts of yourself to work through the issues instead. Those who can become cheerful at the idea of receiving the next flame are to attempt to receive it with an ignorance of their limitations. The practitioner is to think that they are unlocking their inner godhood. Matthew Lawrence continues the programming that he has become a god by having the person kneel on their right knee, facing south, and picturing that he is there giving them the 5th flame. Those that can become cheerful at the idea of receiving the next flame are to attempt to receive it with an ignorance of their limitations. The practitioner is to think they are unlocking their inner godhood. The emissary of the 5th flame, or the sworn knight of the 5th flame, has 4 lessons before advancement in the Ordo Ascensum Aetyrnalis. They want you to believe that a master of all secret arts will contact you in a non-physical way. Are any such entities really of their order? The first lesson centers around these godlike claims about their barons and drawing a circle, a verse, or invented pentagram with the downward pointing triangle within the circle. The triangle is well known as the water sign and is the passive element. The circle is the symbol of totality or containment. The adverse pentagram may refer to matter over spirit or this life over the next, but it can just as easily refer to taking care of yourself and the internal before addressing external problems of others. E.A. Koetting gives the meaning of the circle as cheerful. The pentacle is the manifestation of joy by taking part in the lesser realms, and the downwards facing triangle as ascent. Doesn't he mean descent? The second lesson is around noticing what happens when invoking with a circle and triangle, while imagining flames going through your centers. When you treat something as a god besides God, you start to attribute things to what you worship that were going to happen regardless. And then even your own thoughts and feelings. The third lesson is the same basic sort of technique used by those in the Arab world who followed Wataniya, or ethnic ways, over revelation, and would just call on whatever wandering spirits might be around and invoke their protection when going through a valley. The next is like the first, but the vision is blurred and pressure is created in the forehead while picturing a violet light. It is so easy to strip these things of the evoking demons and invoking angels sort of things and make them work just about the same. Without the spiritually raping yourself. It is alleged that a person receives the sixth flame when they draw the seal of the sworn knights, with the top pointing south, and kneel in there without destroying the symbol. People are taught to imagine that their baron is coming with other sworn knights. Matthew Lawrence wants you to invoke him by his spiritual name, Eric Archelaus Koetting, to give you the sixth flame. After you explode your psychic body with flames inside you, consciously think of yourself as a sworn knight of the sixth flame. Don't you think this is a system to break your psychological boundaries in order to enforce the worship of celebrity? On the way to the seventh flame is 3 lessons. The first is to richly scry, facing southward, with the sigil of Sastan. Another of his references makes it seem like a second S was taken from spirit. A second S taken from spirit made its way into Satan. Either way, I prefer to use sigilia to represent the intents and do exorcisms rather than make deals or pacts. The next lesson is to practice feeling and then seeing for energy of another person. That is a very easy way to manipulate people. Be respectful, please. The final lesson is to practice psychic vampirism up close and at a distance through imagination. Isn't the use of such to curse or feed on the unwilling who you aren't sure deserve it something with significant psychic backlash? The initiation of the seventh flame is described by candlelight invoking the presence of the flames around you and of EAK, the head of the order. Do you really believe that the power here is limitless? Do you really think that you want to feel jinn seep their influence into you for a few days? This system is one that breaks down fear of becoming evil. The sworn knight of the seventh flame has 4 lessons before proceeding. The first lesson revolves around thinking you are being blessed by reading Matthew Lawrence's benediction and trying to open a gateway for entities to enter through by drawing crosses in the air. How is a Christian gesture and the accompanying prayer casting out darkness and letting angels in? Well, there's other Father, Son, Spirit mess, but in Latin, I mean, come on. The next is around perverted sex and trying to call the darkness back among the 6 black candles, going counterclockwise and doing stuff like calling on N by saying a chant that is N-C-K thrice. I'm abbreviating things, obviously. That is a lesson about worshiping Janus. Oh, after that is a lesson about worshiping Janus, the false god of transitions and doors. Some graven image of this is focused on and identified with by the alleged authority of one's role in the Ordo Ascensum Aetyrnalis. The final lesson is to set forth a circle and sprinkle water on yourself till you become a medium. The Yezidi, which many believe are Satanists, and in a way they are, but they're right-hand paths, so people, in their pilgrimage in Lalish, they kiss the doorway when entering the subterranean tomb, which is sort of a spiritual foreplay, but that's another doorway sort of thing. I prefer stuff. Try it. When entering doorways, see if something in your eye or something has a twitch, and maybe you might lucid dream by trying that enough. An 8th flame initiation also requires a circle and invocation of the Baron that is supposed to accompany you, but you probably feel abandoned by whatever you are considering your Baron until the flames are done coming into you. Why thank such a projection rather than the projector? In other words, thank yourself. A probationer Baron has 5 lessons before advancing to the 9th flame. First is to meditate upon the energy around you, moving with your breath while focusing on a distant object till you have a sober intoxication with it. I find an entire Alquran poster, symbolic painting or diagram, or sigillum, works quite well with this. The next is around practicing astral projection to the physical places as if you don't need your body to survive. The next is around making and gazing into each of the 5 tattvas. Fire is an equilateral red triangle. Air is a blue circle. Water is a purple crescent moon. Earth is a yellow square. Spirit is a black oval. They want you to think that a gatekeeper will greet you with each scrying session here, but that is not necessary to be moved by the act. The second lesson is the study of the first 5 chapters of Evoking Eternity by E. A. Koetting and evoking some entity with those 5 principles. I evoke myself and banish invasion influences by some of those principles and sigilia. The next is around evoking one's alleged superior, Baron, to answer 3 questions. Why can't I evoke myself to figure out what I need to learn to advance? Why can't I figure out what to remove from my life on my own? Why can't I thank God for any assistance and banish spectral entities of ascended masters from the start? The seal of the sworn knights is opened again in the initiation of the ninth flame. Matthew Lawrence wants people to invoke him with his spiritual name. Eric Arcalas Koetting, or just Arcalas, aloud, imagining him in the triangle, placing his hands on their head and giving them the ninth flame. The expression of this is thought to make a person shake until they get up knowing that they are a baron of the ninth flame. Now, by watching my videos, you may start dreaming about me too, but it's different when people start imagining, and oh, I was able to imagine it, so he's really present, which, I don't know, that's kind of weird there. Advancement here requires going through 9 more lessons. The next is meditating on a magic square in a temple square, and then hiding the square to never be seen again. Then he wants you to call upon the third Sephiroth, Binah, our understanding, and picture yourself going past outer darkness along the way. You know, it's a biblical phrase for hell. The Mormons were, or Latter-day Saints as they're really known, kind of prefer that term. The outer darkness, where there's the wailing and the gnashing of teeth. The next is to have out-of-body experiences, where you picture yourself in a different animal and false god forms. Then have an out-of-body experience where you imagine yourself growing larger and larger. Now these part animal human forms, actual beings, the Hin people, I believe they're called, that type of jinn is called. Then have an out-of-body experience where you imagine yourself growing larger and larger. I recommend merging this with the ephedrine release. Then is the first out-of-body practice here that doesn't involve leaving the temple space. That is to think about the presence of the 9 flames that supposedly will be with the practitioner at this moment. Then is the scrying into the darkness of the ritual space. I like to do this in my home, the park, and most of all in a masjid, although I don't try to summon entities individual experience through it. Next is to evoke multiple entities without a triangle in the same way. I evoke myself and any entity that feels moved by my worship of God alone. Then is evoking 3 chosen beings at once on separate occasions. I believe it is better to pray or do a ritual in a group of 3 thrice. Finally, E.A. Koetting wants you to evoke the 7 sons of the Phoenix, Malak Taus or Shaitan wa Malak, without a triangle. We must not let the satanic nature of Matthew Lawrence's works be lost on us. The 10th flame is received after projecting oneself into the seal of the sworn knights among the flames after kneeling and worshipping the Phoenix, Heptarchy, and Arcalas. Even Eric Arcalas Koetting claims that he'll place his hands on your head and give you the 10th flame. Is the shaking, difficulty with kneeling, or some chemical reaction, or spiritual? Do you really want to thank the sons of Satan and his grand emissary of the 18 flames? The Baron of the 10th flame has 6 lessons to proceed through. The first is around opening the spinal chakras with the traditional images indigo light, violet light, a light above, and worshipping the compiler of the Vedas. Really? We're going to worship Vasudeva here. Breath control and focusing on the forehead, picturing 16 petals, 12, 10, 6, 4. Worshipping an elephant as a god, focusing on your taint and balance, focusing on your whole genitals, focus on the stomach, focus on the center of the chest, focus on the heart, focus on the throat, focus on the forehead, focus on the crown, and feel the glow in the world. Then one repeats those 19 steps and says, in long breaths, as long as one can. E.A. Koetting had some involvement with Eckankar, so you might say it. Next is to expand the existence further by picturing your so-called master, E.A. Koetting, on the inner order to soul travel. Why can't spiritual travel be done on one's own? Suhnan is visually invoked with a tan robe and his dark hair in the next lesson. Next, might be a rendition of some sort of Ak master, and Sugmad as God is a noun, God we seek. So might be based on that sort of thing. Next, Matthew Lawrence wants his subjects to invoke Darshwan by calling on Suhnan and picturing oneself going to a place like a pyramid. Finally, Darshwan is evoked without worshipping Suhnan, and one is supposed to picture yourself reading from scriptures of light. If we are our own spiritual authority to the point of being gods, why do we need scripture of others? Now, Darshwan might be Darwin Gross, the second historical living Ekmaster. I mean, the person who is called that historically. Which was thought to be, sort of the vessel for God, according to Eckankar, which I, never supported that sort of thing. The 11th flame is received when one says they are ready to, and pictures Eric or Pallas Koetting calling from every direction, pouring flame down upon them. How is the ability to visualize proof of spiritual attainment? The probationer master has 4 lessons before continuing. The first is to regard yourself as being on the causal plane. Why does this have to be a separate realm? Then one does path working through the Kabbalah's tree of life. Next, picture yourself as Anubis, then Isis or Osiris, and then Thoth in the same day. Finally, Suhnan is brought to the internal, and then picturization without a physical base of manifestation like incense. Picturing Suhnam's temple with a blue star on the ceiling, like Eckankar's Chanhassen temple of Ek, and imagine E.A.K's voice pouring down the 12th flame from the star, which is an actual star in the inner worlds. The master of the 12th flame has 6 lessons in order to move on. With the ability to soul travel, keep your bodies in place and bring Suhnam to you without occult techniques. I can't help but think Ordo Ascensum Aetyrnalis is a spin-off of Eckankar. Tabul Sabcha, the Negro, is invoked to appearance holding his walking stick. I can't help but think of the so-called Ekmaster Tawart Manji is given attributes of Yabul, Zakabi, Suhnam, Suglad, Darshwan, a guise of Darwin Gross, or Dapperin, maybe, or Kabul Sabcha is called forth in the same way, but there's supposed to be handshaking to transfer power. Harold Klemp ended this practice when in the physical body in Ekankar because he thought people would get the wrong idea. The next lesson is about creating a personal egregor that is relevant to your desired tax. Then imagine yourself soul traveling to the temple of Suhnam, or Darshwan, and see yourself in that temple of light, discussing how to transfer pure knowledge with Tabriz. In Ekankar, they alter a historical figure into the Ekmaster, Shamuz et Tabriz. Finally, soul travel without invoking a master. If we can do that, why should we call on them when things get difficult instead of relying on ourselves by the will of God? Eric, or Calais, Koetting, claims the 13th through 18th flame are received in realms beyond description and such things. Could it be he just ran out of creativity to invent further initiations? Organized religion certainly has more ideas of hell, entities, symbols, and spiritual places. The master of the 13th flame is to see himself as taking on the form of 6 specific false gods and then perceiving himself as being them. These are Anubis, Janus, Osiris, Maat, Isis, and Thoth. The master of the 14th flame has 5 lessons before advancing. First is to meditate with and soul travel into 3 separate objects. Then one is to soul travel to the so-called highest realms of pure light into a liquid ocean of flame, light, and sound. This may be a version of Ekankar's concept of the ocean of love and mercy. With the exception of the whole journey may be painful. Ekankar teaches God realization can be extremely painful. Then one pictures oneself swimming towards a source on a formative plane, a Nami lock in Ekankar, towards a source. Then one thinks that you are Satnam when you reach him. In Ekankar, this is what they call the ruler of the 4th heaven. After thinking you are Satnam, go deeper and deeper within yourself. The probationer Grand Emissary has one lesson before advancing. That is to discover a place that you know of no mention of within the astral plane, the 1st heaven, and the hell of Ekankar. One is supposed to try to figure out the pass into it, and about 33 or so spirits and their symbols. The Grand Emissary of the 16th flame also has one lesson before advancing. One is supposed to be able to physically manifest a god at this point and asks how to have its power. I think he confuses what physical material means. A god imagined is no god. The Grand Emissary of the 16th flame has 3 lessons before going on. Soul travel and evocation are combined while working with the seal of the sworn knights, or the circle of pacts, and to make your body into a gateway to the worlds. The circle of pacts is some goetic symbol you'll see in some of the grimoires as onerous. Shouldn't we be careful what we open ourselves to? Then soul travel, avocation, and divination are used to figure out how to open a permanent spiritual link in this world through attacks that is almost impossible to fulfill. The secret sacrifice is done. I have visited a temple of Baal with 7 Goetting seals surrounded by their circles. And a pit that attracted scavengers to the side. Me and a friend banished it quite easily with Islamic, Western, Eastern, and his own language of Linavastika chants. The unseen evil energy sensed before seeing what went on and around the bend never returned. The last lesson is to open the gate. The grand emissary of the 18th flame is told he has 4 lessons in godhood. Could they really be the 19th flame? And thereby how to get punished in hell by all of its chief 19 angels? One is to practice expanding and contracting your awareness, like as if you really had an omnipresent body. Shifting awareness is not the same as actually being everywhere. Supposedly, one then becomes able to create objects through evocation. Never have I seen or heard reliable sources of proof for this. Dematerializing objects into the astral places is the next thing to learn. This seems to only be possible with psychedelic projections. One is then supposed to learn how to soul travel to the point of dematerialization and possessing a human body in a remote location. If no one witnesses it, how does it prove your powers or get you ready to reincarnate? Now, I will say that there's the practice of practicing dying daily and having a control over that sort of thing might be